But here we go. So first of all, this is, like I said, your host today are me and Abba Shapiro. Abba Shapiro is the co-director of education at Skylum. And just an all-around great guy. He's also a professional photographer. I am the founder and editor-in-chief of This Week in Photo. You may have heard of it. If not, please join us over at thisweekinphoto.com. And then also, housekeeping-wise, we're going to go just over 1 hour because we had a little bit of a hiccup in the beginning of this webinar, as webinars tend to do. But we're going to go just about 1 hour. Abba's presentation portion is going to last about 45 minutes, and then we'll have a 15-minute Q&A at the end. And also, for those folks that are interested, we'll have a discount code at the end if you want to purchase Luminar 3, a TWiP exclusive discount. Thank you, Skylum, for that. And let me remind you guys that this presentation is interactive, meaning this is a webinar. So as you can see, folks are participating in the chat on the side of the screen. Please continue to go ahead and interact in there and let us know things like, I can't hear you, Frederick, or I can't hear you, Abba. And then also on the other side of things, make sure that if you have a question, hey, Lori, tell Abba to turn off his other audio source. It's bleeding through. So if you have a question, you can go ahead and put the question below the webinar in the question area. That's where we're going to go through the questions during that 15-minute Q&A section. So when if you have a question on the software, just pop it in there, and we'll get to that chronologically at the end of the webinar. And then just finally, if you're having issues with this, with the webinar technical issues like we're having right now, you can just make sure that you're using Chrome or Firefox. Those are the supported browsers. If you want to have suboptimal performance, use Safari, Edge, or Internet Explorer. And, you know, the main reason, I say that tongue-in-cheek, the main reason is there's some technology that allows these kinds of webinars to work, that it's fully supported in Chrome and Firefox, and it's not yet supported in those other three browsers. So we recommend Chrome or Firefox for the best experience. And then lastly, it's on with the show. It's, you know, if I can make sure that Abba can get the message that we're going to start his slide presentation, we will start the show right now. So it is time to go. Abba Shapiro is coming on the stage next, so stand by, folks, and we'll kick off the presentation. Thank you for your patience today as we get started with this demo. This is a new piece of software that we're using for this webinar, and as you can tell, it's a little bit shaky at times. Abba, if you can hear me, I can hear you, but I can't see your screen yet. I'm getting a blank screen. So go ahead and share your screen. And Laura, if you can let him know that we're getting a blank screen for his screen share, we can have him correct that and start rolling with Luminar. Abba, we can hear you breathing, but we can't see your screen yet. I think Abba's just dropped out. He's going to drop back in. Hopefully that'll correct it. Just so that you guys don't see me. There's Abba.
Hey, I rebooted and life is good.
There you are. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Thank the maker.
Yes. Technology worked all the way up until 10:59 seconds when you hit go.
I know, you know, and just for the folks that are in the chat room, don't think that we're amateurs, because we rehearsed this yesterday.
Yeah.
And we were ready to go 30 minutes before, and of course all the demo gods conspired to mess this up. But Abba, go ahead and share your screen. We're ready to roll.
Excellent. I will go ahead and do that. Let me go ahead and share my screen. We're going to share everything. There we go. You'll see a recursive of me, and there we go.
There we go.
And let's go ahead.
All right, here we go.
Excellent. Okay, we are good to go. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. I did not hear all of the introduction, but I talked to you about it in our prep, so thank you very much, Frederick. And I'm very excited to be here to show off Luminar 3 and maybe a couple of other Skylum products, some new things that are coming down the pike, as well as some things that have just recently been released. But let's jump in and talk about Luminar. I have it open with an open catalog, but I'm going to go ahead and start from scratch so you can see the whole workflow of how you can use Luminar to organize your images and rate and grade your images, as well as process them, whether you're processing them a single image at a time or processing multiple images by syncing them and then getting the same processing applied across multiple images. So this is what the interface looks like. I'll do a quick walkthrough of the interface, and then I'm going to go ahead and start from scratch. So there's two basic areas that you're working in when you're working in Luminar 3. You have the library area, the library pane, where you can organize your images, and you can view that in a variety of sizes depending on your screen resolution and the size of your screen. You can start off and you can see everything relatively small, so you can see more images. And of course, you can go up to even larger sizes so you can see much more detail when working on an image. So that's one of the nice things about the interface. We'll go ahead and go somewhere in the middle there, go down to medium. And you can see I can scroll through my images. And this is the first part where you'd be organizing. And then you could take any image that you might want to process. And I'll just give you a quick overview. I'm going to pick this one arbitrarily. And I'll simply select it and switch from this library panel to the edit panel. So I'll open up this image and I can start working on it. The idea behind this is that I can either develop my images nice and quickly and not spend a lot of time, yet use some machine learning and artificial intelligence to process the image quickly. Or if I wanted to, if I came from, say, Lightroom or Photoshop, and I want to go heavier into greater detail, I have some very powerful filters to work with. As a matter of fact, if I click this Add Filter button over here to the right, you can see we have over 50 filters to work with, but that doesn't mean you have to work with all 50. The idea behind Luminar is to be able to edit your images very quickly, yet being able to get the most out of those images. As you can see here with the interface, let me go ahead and close that add filter. I can have my images here in a film strip to the left, so I can easily through them if I want to start processing. I'm going to go ahead and close that. I'm going to just go up here and click on this little checkbox. Gives me a little more real estate. So as you can see over to the right, I have this option to process them, and I have some filters here already. And what I want to do is explain a few ways that you might be able to work, that you can work with Luminar. So I loaded this image in, and it was kind of a gray day, not well exposed, but we're going to work with this, and I'm going to be working without a net here. I haven't worked with this image before, so I'm hoping it works out well. But I'd much rather have something spontaneous than something canned, because this way we know if it works or it doesn't work. There's a great little feature in Luminar, and I'm going to click on a button here in the top center, and that's going to open up something called Luminar Looks. Now, Luminar Looks are a variety of presets that ship with Luminar, as well as additional ones that you can download off of our website. It ships with the first 8 of these looks, and these other ones were all free ones that I downloaded. We also have some that were created by some eminent photographers of their styles, which are sold on the website. But this way, I can very quickly process an image, and I'm going to just go up here and choose the Essentials Look collection. It's in the upper left-hand corner, and when I click on that, you'll notice that the thumbnails across the bottom have changed. So I'm actually seeing a representation of what this image will look like if I choose to apply one of these looks. And you might consider them like a preset, but they're way more powerful than just a preset. So if I click on AI Image Enhancer, it will process the image, and you can see it's already improved the quality of this image quite a bit. It's popping a little bit, and I can still do more work. But I want to just go through and click on a couple other looks that we have available to us, just so you can see how it affects the image. While I do that, take a quick peek at what's happening on the right side under the filters. And I'm going to go ahead and expand all these so you can actually see the sliders that make up these filters. So if I click on Contrast Enhancer, the filters that are applied to this image have changed, and their sliders have changed. So these are some really quick fixes that you can do to an image. But the nice thing about any of these presets or any of these looks is if I think it's too much, I can grab the slider here and blend it back with the original. So let's go over here to classic black and white. So we've taken this to a black and white image. And if I move that slider to the left, I can start blending it in with the color. Now, the other thing you can do, and I would probably tweak this image, and we're going to tweak this image for shortly, is let's go back to AI image enhancer. What Luminar has done in the case of this look is applied these 4 filters on the right, and the sliders are already adjusted. So in the case of a decent image, it can really improve it. As a matter of fact, if we jump back over to the library and look at the gallery view of the library, and I just grab an image that has potential here. Here's an image taken quite a few years ago, and I click on AI image enhancer. You'll notice immediately that it really just pops with one click, and I can dial that back once again, as I indicated earlier. Or if I switch over to the edit side, and that's on the right, I can work with just some of the filters that made up this correction. So if I wanted to, I could go ahead and boost the sky a little bit. I could also work with maybe tweaking the saturation, bring that down a little bit, and bring the vibrance up. So what you see here is that the looks are infinitely adjustable. So think of it as a good starting point. You can click on a look and maybe you're happy and you can go ahead and export it. Or in this case, I can use this as a starting point. I really like it, but maybe I want to tweak this a little bit. I can use the sliders that have been made available to me, and I can add additional filters to correct this image. So I'm going to click on Add Filters, and this will open up this filters catalog. And I could go through and choose some of these filters to work with. As a matter of fact, one of the ones I really like is the tone filter, and I can add that. And there's something called smart toning, which allows me to open up my shadows if I move it to the right, or recover my highlights if I move it to the left without affecting the extreme. So if I move it to the right, it's going to open up my shadows without changing the color. So there's no change in the color saturation. And it doesn't really blow up my highlights. If I moved it to the left, it would recover highlights if they were blown out, but not really crush the shadow. So I'm going to just move it a little bit to the right to open that up. And I think the greens are a little too intense. So we have this foliage enhancer filter. And this again uses a sense of artificial intelligence to just locate the green areas where I can modify those. I can make them more intense, but what I'm going to do is actually make them a little more golden so they're a little more subtle. Okay, so I can go ahead and I can tweak that. You know, if I went to the extreme, you can see, there you go. And this is a little more natural. It's less green, at least at this point. So this was the before image that I tossed in, which is a nice image, but very quickly I was able to really make this image pop by using a look, which I then modified by adding additional filters or adjusting sliders. And if I choose not to use one of these filters, I can very easily over here, if you look at the right side of the interface, I can either deactivate it without removing it by clicking on the eyeball. So this is what happens if I remove the saturation and vibrance filter, yet it's still there. Or if I wanted to, I could hit the little X key and that would remove the filter completely. So I have a lot of power to edit things very quickly. And the nice thing is, if I took a bunch of images in the same location and I wanted to process them all very quickly, I have a lot of options when it comes to working with Luminar 3. One thing I can do is I can actually save all of these settings to my right as my own personal Luminar look. So I'll save that as a matter of fact, Luminar look. I'm going to call this TWiP webinar. So I remember what it's called. And as soon as I hit save, my Luminar looks collection switches from that essentials panel to my personal panel, which there we have the TWiP webinar. So I can apply this look to multiple images. The other thing I could do, and I'm going to jump back into my library, is if I switch over to the library and to the gallery view, if I wanted to apply this look to additional images, I can simply hold down the Alt or the Command key, select other images that I would want to apply this look to. Now, it probably isn't appropriate for this cloud shot out of the window of my plane, but if I did, I could simply right-click and I would see adjustments, and I could go ahead and sync the adjustments from the primary image across multiple images. So it's a very quick way to do several things. To process an image how you like it, or in some cases, maybe you shot and actually did a pretty good job. One of the things you can do is you could have a whole shoot that you've brought in on your camera card, and you could tweak one just so that it's neutral, and then you could go ahead and sync all the other ones to match, just so you can give to your clients a variety of images that aren't fully processed but are quickly processed. And you can even build it where you can use your watermark and even copy that. Now, we can't cover all of that in the 45 minutes that we have for this webinar. And towards the end, I will point you in the direction to some additional educational resources that we have at Skylum, where we have training for the people who are inpatient that lasts from 2 to 5 minutes at a pop to full 1 hour training. So we can get into a lot more detail. We have the opportunity in the 45 minutes here.
Hey, Abba,
but being able,
I got a quick question for you before you continue. Sorry to interrupt you.
Sure.
So can you go into a little bit more detail? I don't know if you have this later in your presentation, but a little bit more detail as to what's happening with artificial intelligence. What does that mean? Like on that sky, when you were saying that that AI was doing its magic to the sky. What is it doing? Does it detect that, hey, this is a sky, and therefore I'm going to do A, B, and C to it?
So here I'll talk about the magic. I've opened up another image. This is, again, kind of washed out. It's inevitable if I travel somewhere. The weather is horrible. I went to Canada, to the eastern provinces to shoot lighthouses, and the fog was so thick that we could only see about 1,000 yards in front of us. So I have lots of clouds and not many lighthouses. But here's an example of an image. And instead of applying a look, as a matter of fact, I'm going to close this to give us a little more real estate. And what I can do is I can start from scratch, and I'm going to click here, and I'm simply going to delete all of my filters. And I'm going to bring in a couple of the key ones that I use. So I'm going to add a filter. And the first one I'm going to work with is the Accent AI filter, and then I'll get to the Sky Enhancer filter. And I'm doing this because this would probably be my traditional workflow. So I apply the Accent AI filter, and what we've done is we've analyzed tens and tens of thousands of images, the before and the afters were developed by professional photographers. And using the computer and computer learning, we determined what a photographer might do to improve an image. So with this movement of one slider to the right, I will automatically adjust the tone of this image. So it will give me nice deep blacks and not overexpose my whites. It will open up my shadows. It will add a little bit of contrast and sharpness, a little bit of vibrance to the image. All the things that may take me maybe 10 or 12 sliders in multiple filters can be done with one slider using the Accent AI filter. And it does recognize things inside the image, such as trees and mountains and foreground and people. So it is very smart analysis and smart correction. And you can see with just this slider, and as a matter of fact, I'm going to go to a split screen, and you can see that it really has already made this pop a little bit. And we're going to improve this image even more. So let's go ahead and turn off the split screen. So this is a starting point. I could, if I wanted to put on a raw develop filter. As a matter of fact, I do want to point out that Luminar works with all flavors of images, all the popular camera raw formats, TIFF files, PIC files, JPEGs, portable network graphics, as well as Photoshop documents. So if I wanted to, I could apply the raw develop filter and have all of these sliders to work with. And sometimes I do use that, but a lot of times the AI filter gets the job done.
Nice.
So in addition to that, I'm going to show you the AI Sky Enhancer. Now, this is a recently added filter. We brought it out in October. And this is very cool because, again, we analyzed a variety of images, and it can determine what is sky and what are clouds. And it can determine this from blue hour to blue hour, the time right before sunup to the time right after sundown. So if you have the golden skies, it can work on that. Blue skies, it can work on that. And what happens when I move this slider to the right, you'll see that it really starts popping the sky. I'm starting to see the clouds come out, and I'm starting to see detail. much different than if I just put a polarizer on it. And if you notice, it doesn't get confused by the water. So it understands what sky is, where it should be, keeps the clouds white, and punches it up. And there, if I turn this on and off, you can see it brings in the sky. Let me show you an image, and I can work on this to tweak it, but I want to show you an image where you can see very quickly where you can, here, maybe quick edit these. I have some, definitely some sky stuff here. Here's actually one I'm going to go ahead and remove all of my adjustments because I want you to see how it works with a decent image. I just lost that image. I thought I hit reset, and I probably hit delete. Let's go ahead and launch that, edit. And I've already run this through just a couple of the Accent AI filters. I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. I'm going to delete all my filters. So this is, we'll get this all deleted. And as you can see, the other nice thing about Luminar 3 is I can work with layers and blending mode. So here we are. This is the original image. Sky's washed out, not a lot of pop. So one of the things I'm going to do, and I haven't shown you this yet, it's a great opportunity, is I can bring on filters one at a time. You saw that I could bring on looks with adjustments. We also have workspaces, which a bunch come bundled with it, as well as you can make your own. But a workspace is great because with one click, I can load several filters that I always use. And they're not set with any slider settings like a look is, but they're all available to me. So I can, again, very quickly edit my video. And as a matter of fact, you see we have several ones for your essential filters, if you're doing aerial photography, black and white, landscape, and so forth. Quick and Awesome is one of my favorite to start with because it has 2 of the AI filters that we've created. So there, I'm going to go with the Accent AI, bring that to the right. And you see it starts bringing out a lot of depth into this image. And then I can throw in the sky enhancer, and this is really going to pop that sky. This is really nice. And then we'll look at saturation and vibrance. And I like the way these pop, but I want to even out my colors. And that's where vibrance comes into play. Vibrance is smart saturation, where saturation, as you move it to the right, it just equally saturates or desaturates an image to the left. Vibrance is smart saturation. If something is more muted, it will saturate it. But if it's oversaturated, it won't affect it. And vice versa when you move it to the left. So sometimes I move my saturation to the left, I move my vibrance to the right, kind of evens out my colors, give it a hair of clarity. And we can see with just these 4 sliders, this is what this image looked like. And this is the image that I can create very quickly within Luminar. So does that address a little bit about our artificial intelligence?
It does. Thank you. Thank you. That was my main question. You know, is it intelligent enough to know where the sky is and all that stuff? And also, I want to remind the folks that are in the chat room. There's awesome chat in there. Lori's answering questions. Thank you, Lori, for that. And if you have any questions that you want Abba to answer at the end of the presentation and the Q&A, make sure you put them in that questions area down below the video, and he'll answer those. But feel free to continue throwing questions at Lori Rubin, who's in the chat. Thanks, Abba.
Yeah, and as you notice, Frederick, when I play with the sky enhancer, there are other things that are blue in this image. It's not really looking just for blue. It's just one of the parameters. You have these boxes here, the cargo boxes. The water is a little bit blue, but as you notice, as I move that sky enhancer left and right, it's only affecting what's in the sky. And what's really cool, if I zoom in, even where we have this detail here, where we have these lines, you'll notice, and I'm going to toggle it on and off now. This is without the sky enhancer. And let's see if did it catch up. There we go. With and without, that's without, that's with. And it even recognizes that there is sky behind these objects. So I really love the fact that I have this very quick solution. And as a matter of fact, I really love this so much. I'm going to take a quick look to see if I have a sunset image to work with. And if not, I can bring one in. But let me scroll down. There we go. There's a great little sunset image. And as a matter of fact, if I get the info, this is only a JPEG. So this doesn't even have all the detail that a raw file would have. But if I go here under Edit, and we'll go here to Quick and Awesome for my settings, you notice the sky's a little washed out. I'm going to do Accent AI. This will pop the image a little bit more. And take a look. When I do the sky enhancer for the sunset, even though it's not a blue sky, now it's a sunset, it recognizes it and really makes it rich and deep. And if I push it all the way to 100, and it still is not intense enough for my tastes, with every filter here, I can easily duplicate them in a single layer, and I can push it even harder. So that's one of the nice things, is that I can use multiple instances of filter to enhance an image even within the same layer. And we do have layers and blending modes to work with. So I just love how quick this is. And I just want to show you a couple of the other filters that I may use to process this image, just to show you some of your options. And it can be as easy as what I did with, I could go here, I could add a vignette, bring the vignette down a little bit. And what I really like, I'm going to bring the size down and maybe a little bit of feather. What I actually like to do is bring the feather all the way to 0, bring my size down and make it really strong. Then I can see where my vignette is. I can easily then adjust the shape. And now I can place the center of that right here over my subject, make it a little rounder, and now bring it back out to where it's normal, because the thumb is, if somebody goes, wow, what a great looking vignette, you've probably done a little bit too much vignetting. So there we have the vignette, and I like this feature here called inner light, where I can even lighten up her a bit, and you can see here with the vignette that that was before and that was after. It's subtle, but it really brings your eye into this image. So I have all of this power to create this kind of a look for those folks that really want to take it deeper. Under the professional part of the list, we have things such as curves and dodging burning and hue, saturation, and luminance. I'll click on hue, saturation, and luminance, which is awesome because I can specify just the reds. I'm going to bring down the saturation a little bit so that doesn't pop. And I can even go to the hue and make that red a little bit more towards the magenta, or maybe more towards the orange, so it doesn't really stand out. She should stand out. The sunset should stand out. And I can control the luminance. So there I have a lot of power, and very quickly, that was my before, a nice image, but this is a really rich image I like. And if I wanted to, I probably would bring in and maybe open up the shadows here. And there's a couple of things I can do once I get an image processed the way that I like it. So let's go here. I've shown you the tone filter. And what's also nice about these filters is I can grab any one of them and I can reorder them, and it's going to go with the priority of top down. And I do want to point out that this is completely non-destructive. I'm not affecting my original images at all. And I can go ahead and continue to make changes, but the raw files or the JPEGs, they are left untouched. So I applied the tone filter. I'm going to go ahead and bring up smart toning to see if I can lighten her face a little bit, maybe bring up the shadows. And this is really a nice feature that we have, that for every filter as well as for every layer, you have the ability to create a mask. And I can paint in the effects of that single filter or the entire look, just parts of my image. And I can do that either with a gradient mask, which is great for skies, or a radial mask, which is great for blurring. I'm going to brush this in. I'll click on brush. And what happens is this top toolbar changes, and I'm in the paint mode. You can see in the upper left side, and I can simply go in and I can start painting and saying, I only want that shadow area to affect this side of her face and maybe over here. Okay, so this is pretty strong. Now I can go back, turn off my my mask painting ability, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to, get the blacks a little bit deeper because I opened them up a little bit too much, and I'm only affecting that side of her face, and I'm basically relighting her just very subtly with this filter. So that's an idea how I would develop an image quickly. The other thing that's really a lot of fun is I can go ahead and I can hit the little plus key on the upper right-hand corner and create a new layer. And what this allows me to do when I create a new layer, I can create either an adjustment layer, which is what I'm going to do. I can also bring in another image if I wanted to blend it with this. So if I wanted to bring in some texture or maybe replace the sky, I can do that. But I'm going to add a new adjustment layer. And what this allows me to do is take this image that I've processed to where I like it. And let me close the add filter window so you can see the full image. And perhaps I want to try out some of the really cool looks on this image without affecting what I've already done. So I'm going to click on User Luminar Looks and go back to some of my options. And maybe I'll pick the dramatic looks. And you'll see this will now populate and they will update the thumbnails. And I could try some of these other looks on my image to see if I like it. So maybe I'll try dramatic, and it gives me a whole different feel. And again, as I did before, I could blend that back, the original image. And if I wanted to, if I see something I really like, there's an interesting film noir where basically it pulled out all the colors but the red, which is kind of a cool little look there. I could go in and I could paint this effect or erase this effect just like I did before with masking. So this is great. It's non-destructive. I can try a variety of looks and very quickly try different things in the image, see if I really like it. I'm going to go with something, one of the presets here. As a matter of fact, we have a bunch of ones that you can download. Here's some that Dixie Dixon, one of our ambassadors, created for us that people can download. So I could try one of those looks on my image to see if it gives it a whole different feel, and it does, and I can go ahead and blend that in. So there's a lot of power here with the ability to apply looks and save looks and process your images.
Hey, Ronald in the chat has a really good question. In fact, this is a question I was going to ask. He wants to know can the masks be made visible? So can you kind of like in Photoshop, you can turn on and see the ruby lith?
Absolutely. Yes, I love that word ruby lith. There's something about that word I like. And as a matter of fact, let me jump back here to the one that we created where I painted in over her face, where I have that. And if you look here to the right, you can see there's a little icon here. It's actually very small, but it does show where the mask is. And don't worry, that's not how you see the mask. That's just an establishing fact that there is a mask and gives you an idea where it's applied. If I go ahead and I turn on the masking tool again, if we go up to the upper left-hand corner of the interface where I chose paint or erase, and I can choose my brush size and softness as well as opacity, there's a little eyeball up here. And when I turn that on, it shows me the ruby lith of where that mask is being painted in. So if I find that I was sloppy or did something I didn't like, I can switch over here to say the erase and start painting this out. Or if I wanted to blend it a little bit, I could have that erase be, say, at 30%, and I could create some translucency here, but still get the effect of the mask. So it's easy enough to turn on and off with this button here. There are keyboard shortcuts for most of these for those people who like those. It happens to be the / key. So I could toggle that on and off there, as well as changing the size of my brush. We use the standard left and right brackets to make a brush bigger and smaller, and shift left and right to make that brush softer and harder. So that was a great question. And as a matter of fact, if there are some other questions, as I try to squeeze as much information into our allotted time, is there other questions about what I've covered so far or yet to cover?
Yeah, if you guys have questions, just go ahead and put them in the questions area down below. If you have any questions that you want to just throw at Lori Rubin, she's answering questions feverishly in the chat over there. So this is going well, Abba. Thank you.
That's great. So I jumped back into the library. Let me talk a little bit about the library and the power of the library. One thing I love about the library is how fast it loads images. I'm going to load some images here because one of the things we were working on when we created this catalog feature was we wanted it to be quick, and that if you brought in a folder of images, that you would see images very quickly. So if I go over to the right side of the interface, I'm now in the library panel. I've stepped back over here, and I'm going to add a folder of images. All you need to do is hit the plus key, and I have a variety of images here. And we'll go ahead and maybe we'll choose New York street photography. It has a bunch of images in here. Let me go ahead and click on that. I'll say add folder, and immediately it loads all the images. And you saw how fast that was. And if you recall, a lot of these were raw images to start with. So it's very quick. It either brings in the JPEG out of the raw, or it grabs the JPEG if it's a JPEG, or creates a thumbnail as needed. But the idea is that it's very quick and you're not spending a lot of time loading, and you're also not moving your images. So you notice one of the things, there was a folder inside this New York street photography folder called Blend. And Luminar actually respects what's inside that folder. So if you have a folder of images, and let's see if I can switch over to my desktop here without losing everything. Okay, there's definitely get pop-ups there. So there I have a folder called Skylum Libraries. And I just want to show you what's inside here is I have maybe this travel photos, and there is a slew of photos in here. Okay, so I'm going to open this up, and you'll see it will bring all of these images. And I'm not sure exactly how many are in here, but I can probably tell you that we're talking about 21 gigabytes of media. So let's see how well that works. We're going to go ahead, we're going to hit plus. It's going to bring me to my desktop. And the one I wanted to bring in was, I believe, called travel photos. There we go. I'm going to simply click on that and say add folder. And it just brought in 571 images. So the speed is just crazy. As a matter of fact, I have some redundancy because Paris was already in here. But it brought in all of these images. And this is a mix mostly of raw images with some JPEGs and just everything that was at my camera, but it kept that whole organizational structure. So if I wanted to see, oh yeah, just show me my images from Shanghai, I'm here. And I can even right click on an image and say, you know what? Show me just images from the same date. So being able to find things quickly is really, really nice. If we look over here and to the right side, in addition to showing all photos, I can look at them by the metadata, that when it was taken, by the year, month, and day, as well as if I favorited something. And I'm going to show you a little bit about how quickly you can rate and label your images. And I can even look at ones that were recently edited. So there's the ones that I worked on earlier today. So let's go back here to all photos, or actually to the ones that I just brought in, which is Shanghai. But I could go through here, and if I right click, I get some options on flagging, rating, and color label. So it's very easy to say, oh, what's a pick, which is a P, a favorite, or what am I rejecting, crossing it out. And I could use the drop-down menu and say, I like this one. I'm going to hit the P key. I like this one. Don't like this one. Hit the X key. You'll notice that I don't have to use the drop-down. I can actually use those keyboard shortcuts and use the left and right arrow keys to very quickly say what images I like and what images I don't necessarily like. And the same thing I can do for rating an image. You can see I can do that with the drop-down. I can do it from 5 to 1. I also have on the Mac here the ability to increase and decrease the rating with bracket keys. And a matter of fact, I do want to point out, though I am currently on a Macintosh, it works equally as well on Windows. And you can install it on each of those machines. You have the different machines. So if I wanted to, I could set my rating here. But of course, I can do that either by clicking directly on these little ghosted stars on my image, or using the keyboard and using the numeric values of 1 through 5 to quickly rate my images. And once I've done that, I can go ahead, and then I've rated these. I can, instead of saying show me all photos, show me just anything that has 3 stars or more, okay? And then organize them by edit time or capture time, and if I've applied a color label to them. So I can very quickly go through, rate my images, organize them, and work with them. And I'm not doing anything destructive to the organization right now. In my hard drive, I'm just labeling all this metadata, and it's all stored inside wherever you've created the catalog as non-destructive state files is what we're using, not state files. And this is really just a great way to work. So that's one thing you can do with rating. And because I love how quickly I can process an image, I'll take this image, which is kind of mediocre to start with. I'm going to go under Edit, Quick and Awesome, my workspace, very quickly boost the image, enhance the sky a little bit. Let's go with that saturation and vibrance trick. A little clarity. I'm going to add my develop filter. I'm going to warm up the whole image a little bit, just neutralize it. I could even grab the eyedropper if I wanted to, and maybe click on something that's a neutral gray, tweak it. Yeah, I like that. We're going to just make that sunset a little bit more intense. That's great. Let's bring our blacks down. I think that's good. And then we can add some detail to this image. I'm going to go ahead, and if I can't find detail or something that has detail, it's really cool. I can go to the top of the filters catalog and just type in what I'm trying to do, in this case, detail, and it shows me all the available filters that will affect the detail in my image, such as structure and clarity. But I really like Detail Enhancer because it allows me to work with the sharpness of an image in the small, medium, and large groupings of pixels. So I can go ahead and work with the small and the medium, but then I'm going to make the large ones less detailed so my sky doesn't get crunchy. So you can see here, this is before detail. It takes a second to turn on and turn off again. And that's with detail. And it's really subtle, but you notice it works here with the buildings. So I'm really getting the image that I like. And if I want to take that sky down a little bit, I'm going to go ahead, reset my search box, go back to that tone filter that I love, go to smart toning. I'm going to bring down my highlights without crushing my shadows. And right here, I've really created a pretty cool look. And I haven't tried this with this image. We have a really cool filter called sun rays, where I can create artificial sun, but it actually looks at the contrast in the different areas. Now, of course, the sun doesn't occur here in this image. And I can go ahead and select where I want to place the sun center. Sometimes I place it off screen. Technically, I think maybe it would be coming somewhere out here. I could fake it and have it come from behind the building. But you'll notice that where it's darker, it doesn't bleed through. So it's using, again, artificial intelligence to see where I want that to work. So this is just placing the sun. And then what I would likely do is I would probably warm it up a little bit. I don't need the sun to be as big. I would warm up the rays. I can modify the amount of rays, how they look, their overall penetration into the image. And then once I've done this, I can simply go ahead, do the same thing I did with the mask earlier to brighten that woman's face. But in this case, I'm going to erase and just get subtle, get those little sun rays kind of just, you know, where I want them to be very subtle. And again, if you didn't know that I kind of added that, it does give this very subtle, cool effect. And I could go ahead, switch back to my library, go up into the gallery view. And if I wanted to, I don't know how well, these are all different exposures, but I could click ones that are of similar exposure, hit my adjustments, sync my adjustments. It now will apply that to all of these. And if I wanted to, I can then go in, open it up. I can say, yeah, probably won't have the sun filter there. I like where it took me, so they all kind of match. And then I could go in, switch to this one, and then maybe either make the sun rays less intense or just toggle them off so they don't affect my image. And then because this is all infinitely adjustable, maybe I'll go in here and make it not quite as cool. And I can even see if I wanted to, what it would look like if I reset that by just double clicking on these, dragging and finding out a different color area. But that was the before, this is the after, like where it's going. And again, I would tweak with some things, probably grab that tone, and this way I would open up maybe the shadows and bring down. And you see, as I adjust everything, it's all updated. So there we go, very quickly. I was able to process that. Okay, that's a really fast overview, and I was talking really quickly, so on the instant replay, just play it back at half speed. You'll get a 90-minute webinar for the price of a 45. There you go. I
know we had like 45 minutes to go through this very, very deep application, but you did a fantastic job, Abba. Thank you for doing that.
My pleasure.
We've got a ton of questions coming in. Geez, well, people, that's a good sign. People are very curious about this application. So you ready to field a few
I am
questions
ready to
from the listeners?
Yeah, throw me.
All right, here we go. I'm going to bring us both back on screen here. And let's see. Let's just dive into the questions here. First up is from, let's see. Greg says hello. Hey, Greg. All right, let's stop that. Victor wants to know, is Luminar 2018 different from Luminar 3? Is Luminar 2018 different from Luminar 3?
That's a great question, Victor. As a matter of fact, there is a big difference in that 2018 does not have the library feature. At this point, all of the filters are exactly the same. But when Luminar 3 came out, we added the library feature so that you can easily organize and apply your adjustments across multiple images. And the Luminar 2018 doesn't have that feature. You need to open up your individual images individually, one at a time. So that's the big change between 2018 and Luminar 3. We do have some other products on the horizon, which I told I'm allowed to talk about. we will be actually releasing a new product called Luminar Flex, which is just a plug-in only product. So for the folks who don't necessarily want to use the library and they have a workflow, they're working in either Photoshop or Lightroom, or on the Mac if they're working in Photos or Adobe Photoshop Elements, you can very easily keep that workflow. And then when you want to apply a filter, all you have to do is you can apply the Luminar suite, process the image, and then go right back to your host application. So what we're trying to do is make sure that you still get the power of our products. A lot of people like different workflows. So we're allowing those who want to use it exclusively as a plugin, use it as a plugin. Those who really enjoy the library feature, use the library feature, but still have that AI and image aware enhancement happening under the hood, which really sets us apart from a lot of the other photo developing softwares.
Love it. Love it. Perfect. All right. And folks, I just threw up a slide on the screen while we're answering questions. Like I said at the beginning, Skylum is giving $10 off Luminar 3 to attendees of this webinar. Just use the code TWiP, TWiP, and you can get to it at, if I take our thumbnails off the screen, you can get to it at twip.pro/Luminar, twip.pro/Luminar. It will take you over to the Luminar page where you can use the TWiP coupon for $10 off, and that's enough about that. So I'll leave this up for a couple minutes, and then we'll step through the rest of this. The next question up, is from Janet Robinson. Janet Robinson says, "How is the catalog handled in Luminar 3 compared to Lightroom?"
Okay, again, these are really good questions. Let me show you. So when we get back to the screen, the catalog is actually its own self-contained folder inside of your system. So I had indicated I was going to create a new catalog, but I ended up using what I had there for the sake of time. But as you can see, if I go under File, Catalog, there is an option to open up recent catalogs, and I actually have catalogs for different types of shoots I've done. Maybe it's for different clients, maybe it's for different presentations, maybe it's for family versus professional, but it's very easy to create custom catalogs for a certain set of images. You don't have to put them all into one, but I'm going to show this catalog in my Finder, and you can put this catalog wherever you want it. Now, this is, again, on a Mac. It works the same way on a PC. You would just have it in Explorer. So I would have in my Pictures folder, it actually looks like a folder here. Okay, and let's go ahead and look at Modified. So we're going to go to the Indie Meetup, which is the name of this catalog. So this is where everything in this catalog is stored. You'll notice it's not huge because it's not storing the images. It's just a database of where the images are and what you've done to them to modify them, whether it's to mark them as favorites or give them a rating, as well as what you've actually done. And if I step inside this catalog, I can look at my history, and this is something I referenced earlier. These are state files, and what they are is this is all the math that's used to modify the image. So it's not creating a lot of extra media, but it's being very efficient. And then when you delete a folder, all it does, if you delete it from this list here, let me jump back to Luminar. If I had a folder, you'll see if I say, you know what, I really don't want this New York street photography folder, so I can go ahead and remove it from the catalog. And you'll see a warning that says, if I remove it, it's going to also remove all of the edits, which are all those state files, okay? Doesn't affect the original ones, but this is great because your catalog doesn't get artificially loaded, okay? And it doesn't use up a lot of space if I keep it here. But it is nice that the forethought that went into designing this said, okay, when you actually say, I'm no longer using this media, it removes all of that excess, so it keeps your catalogs nice and lean and fluid.
Lovely. Very cool. All right, Janet, I hope that answered your question. The next question up is, let's see, Jesse. Jesse David Fuller says, what percentage of sky must be in the photograph in order for the AI sky filter to recognize and correct it? I noticed in photos with maybe 25% sky, the AI filter would not recognize the sky and it won't work. What do you think, Abba?
I don't know an exact percentage, and I don't think there's truly it's percentage oriented in that it will work about 90% of the time and figure out where the sky is. There are instances where it can be confused, and what you'll see is that the sky enhancer, in this case, it works because it does recognize the sky. But if I jump back to an image, and let's see if I have one without sky, and this one doesn't have sky, and if I go to the edit area, don't want to go there, to edit, went back to the wrong image. My mouse is just a little bit too sensitive. Let's go back here, pick the image I want, go to edit. No sky in here. And if I go to my filters, and I'm going to jump back to the just quick and awesome, you'll see that the sky enhancer is grayed out. So this is actually a good thing in that if you've created a look, or you're copying a set of developed filters across multiple images, if there's no sky, it will recognize it and will then not apply that modification. So that's the positive. There will be times it misses the sky because it's assuming what's there isn't sky. And there are ways to confuse it. Sometimes if the sky is very washed out and it's gray and no clouds in it, it may get confused. If it's only in a piece of the image, it may get confused. I don't think it's specifically, oh, it has to be a certain percentage, because I've seen it work with very small areas of sky that actually have some of the original blue and some clouds. And I was very surprised. And then there are times where I have such a little bit of sky in the image, it does get tricked. And in that case, you can use some of the other filters to really work with that, such as the polarizing filter, hue, saturation, and luminance, as well as some of the tinting filters to bring in a little bit of that blue sky back. So hopefully that answered his concern.
Very good. All right. Thank you, Jesse, for that question. Next question, Lori reposted this. It's from Charlotte, asked in the chat, does workflow or order of filters matter or influence the result?
As a matter of fact, it can, which is neither a perfect yes or a perfect no. There are some instances where you're working on a variety of filters and you won't see the difference if you move them up and down. But in some cases, the filters will affect an image. Let me go arbitrarily bring this one in. I'm going to select it, hit the edit button. We'll hopefully have this quick and awesome. So if I have this here, and I go ahead and I'm going to do the AI boost and the sky enhancer. I have a little bit of a vignette here. So in this case, I have processed this image, and if I apply Smart Tone early, it'll actually apply that prior to running any of these earlier effects. If I bring it down lower, okay, it will run these effects first and then this. And in some cases, you don't see a big difference. But if I jump over here to, say, our black and white conversion filter, okay, and I'm going to apply that, what this does is it works just like in the days when we worked with enlargers in the darkroom, where you can put a colored filter in front of the enlarger lens, and the way it sees the tonality on the different images is a little different whether you put a different color filter there. And as a matter of fact, you can even control with these sliders what tones are going to be affected. Now, where this will come into play is if I applied this much earlier on in my workflow, it would take dominance and it would be black and white first, and then some of my other filters may not take as much of an effect. You can see it confuses the sky enhancer. It doesn't now, saturation and vibrance really isn't affected. But the interesting thing is if I go down and move this back to the bottom to where we're putting that black and element on here last, when I start working with some of these other filters that affect the color of the image, it's going to affect how the black and white interpret it, because it's going to start at the top, apply all of these filters, and then when it gets to black and white, it will look above at the different colors that it is. And as you see, it's very different than what the original was, but the black and white will interpret that slightly differently. So there are some filters which are affected by their location in the workflow. Other ones are pretty much mutually exclusive, such as color and detail.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. Thank you, Charlotte, for that. Next question up. And I want to remind folks, if you're looking for that offer, that $10 off thing, I threw that in the offers tab. So in the bottom, next to the questions tab, you'll see polls and offers. If you click on offers, there's a link in there that will take you over to it in case you're looking for it while we're screen sharing here. Also, we're at the top of the hour. It's noon here in California, and this is an hour-long webinar, but we've got a ton more questions to go through. So with Abba's permission, we'll continue for another 15 minutes or so and answer as many as we can. Abba, are you good for that?
I'm good for that. I do want to point out that if they go to the Skylum website, they can find out more information about all of our products, as well as we have a lot of training. You know, this is Luminar. We have a whole education section where we have videos, and they can watch for those impatient ones. We're actually working with a lot of the individual features. We have a bunch of articles they can read, and we're constantly putting out updated training and webinars. So we're really strong on the education side. We want people not only to, you know, get the plugin, but we want them to love and use the plugin. So we are constantly putting out new tips and training every week to keep people informed. So let me jump back over here to Luminar, and I'm ready to take more questions.
All right, great. All right, so the next question up, and we've got a bunch to go through, so we'll get as many as we can in the next 15 or so minutes. The next one is from Van. Van says, I love that first name, Van. Van says, when is the PC version of Skylum, I'm assuming he's talking about Luminar, going to be a full-fledged companion to the Mac version? That has been a great frustration for many of us, including using Luminar as a smart object.
So in response to Van's questions, the engineers are constantly working on bringing parity up. It's a little more challenging working with Windows because Windows kind of breaks a lot of rules, but they are, if you've looked at the releases since we did the original release of Luminar 3, a lot more of the functionality that was initially available on the Mac is now available on the PC side. We do have different groups of engineers working on different products. And one of the things that we wanted to do is, with a separate team, is on this Luminar Flex, which are the plugins. They're working really hard for compatibility across platforms, as well as in the variety of Adobe applications and third-party applications. So we have greater integration with things as smart objects, and things are still being developed. So though things are not necessarily in perfect parity now, they are well aware of it. They are talking with Microsoft to find out about some of the nuances under the hood about what happens. And we are, if you looked and noticed, we are releasing probably updates almost monthly to the applications to fix some of those little annoyances that things don't work as well across both platforms. So there's an awareness. Please, if you do have a problem, you can send an email to support@skylum.com. They can walk you through a lot of the solutions. And then also on our blog and our website and our Facebook page, you can be made aware of updates to, you know, as we enhance the applications.
Very cool. Yeah, and I can attest to that. The team over there is very, very responsive. And like anything else, this is software, right? Which means it's soft and in a constant state of improvement. So yeah, make sure they know your concerns so that they can address them. All right. Next question up is actually this is a feature improvement request from Charlotte. She says, could AI Sky Enhancer also include a saturation vibrant sky slider just for sky to draw some of the color out? So I'm gonna leave that to you and Lori to pass on to the engineering team there.
I think that's a great request. I like the idea. We'll run it by the engineers. Sometimes they're very much the purist that they only want to keep that as one slider. If I wanted to add vibrance here just to kind of look at the workflow, I just opened up a brand new image. I'm going to use Smart Tone to bring out some of the foreground. But if I wanted to intensify this, what I would do is I would take either my saturation, or most likely, knowing me, I would use vibrance and bring that up. And if I only wanted to affect the sky, I would actually go here under my mask. I would choose the gradient mask, and I would draw a line where I want that to be. And as you can see, you can flip that around. You can position that anywhere you want. But let me go make that even again. Drop that. Widen the threshold a little bit. We can go here. And if you happen to draw this upside down, you go to the mask and actually invert that. Okay, and it will show you, and I'm going to make this extreme so you can see what happens when I do the inversion. So there, it's on the wrong side, there it's on the right side, but this is something really cool. So this is, let's say I have it the way I like it. It's really popped my sky, but the truth is that if I didn't have the mask, I wanted this to also be bright. So the nice thing is, even though I did this as a gradient, I can come back and choose the brush, and I'm going to turn on my ruby lift. So there is where the mask takes effect, but I can now paint in just a little bit right there. So now that vibrance is going to be applied to that reflection also. So there we are. Let me turn on my mask, and without that vibrance and with it, but I can be very precise in where it happens. So as to whether they'll add it as a slider, I'm not sure. We'll pass it on. But this is the workflow that I currently use. And as a matter of fact, I might even go ahead and do the same thing with that saturation and vibrance, in that I would go to my brush and go to the erase. And I just looked up here and it's like, well, I don't want it to affect these clouds as much. And I could just simply paint that out. So it gives you a lot of control to mix them and match them, but take advantage of our masking features.
Lovely. Very cool. Charlotte with the good questions. Thank you so much for that. All right, next up is Mark, and this is a good point. Mark says, I'm seeing a fair bit of banding on the images. I'm hoping that is caused by the webinar software compressing the video, not something that is in the original image or in the editing software. Yeah, it is. It is caused by this webinar software that's crunching Abba's screen down and spitting it out to all the people that are watching this. So yeah, the quality of the images that you see on the screen are not indicative of what this software is doing. Also, also I want to point out that the frame rate that you're seeing, i.e. when Abba clicks on a menu item or drags a slider, how it's a little bit jerky, that's the webinar software trying to keep up. And not, it's fluid. What Abba's seeing on his side is fluid. Everything is just sliding back and forth. But what you're seeing is a little bit jerky. That is not the software. That is that's the webinar software that's attempting to keep up with everything. So thanks for
yeah. As a matter of fact, we do work in a 16-bit color space, so you do have that fine gradation. It's 2 to the 16th for the number of colors in the RGB color space. So there's the billions of colors that you would expect.
Excellent. Van has another question. He says, can centering the vignette now be done with the PC version?
I'm not going to give a knee-jerk response to that. I believe it might. No, because I could say yes or no, but I do back and forth between Mac and my PC frequently. So I'm going to yield to, I am not sure. I knew that was a limitation that they were working on fixing, and I thought they did. Perhaps Lori can investigate, answer that in the chat. If not, a quick email to support@skylum.com will probably give you the correct response, but I don't want to make something up because I do forget, especially when working with all 5 pieces of software within our suite of applications.
Yeah. So support@skylum.com.
That is correct.
All right. Thank you, Van, for that. Moving right along. And you already answered this question from Charlotte. Is Luminar working in 16-bit? And the answer is yes, right?
Yes, absolutely. If the original file is 16-bit, it will be 16-bit. If you open up, say, an 8-bit JPEG, it will refer to that. It still, I believe, works in 16-bit, but then when you export an image, and also, let's say you're done with this one, and I go export, I do have the option to choose if it's, now in case of JPEG, you are limited in your the depth of your image. But if you switch over instead of formats such as JPEG to something such as TIFF, you do have the option to choose your compression as well, if it's 8 or 16 bits, and also the color space depending on your ultimate use, whether it's for the web or for printing or to deliver to somebody who needs it in one of the other color spaces. And as a matter of fact, you can also resize these to, let's say you are exporting 100 images. You can say, I want them all to be only 2,000 pixels wide because they're just review images from my client. So you have that flexibility when exporting an image. I'm going to go ahead and escape from this and go back here. The other thing you have, let me bring this full screen again, just make it a little bit bigger, is as you can see, I can also quickly go to some social media networks and I can open this in if I wanted to. I can send it straight to Photoshop, or to Lightroom and leverage the power of those applications if I like that workflow. So in this case, it would send a 16-bit TIFF to either Photoshop or to Lightroom, and I could continue to work in those host applications.
Very good. All right, moving right along. Thank you, Charlotte, again for that question. Wally wants to know, how do you add text to a photo such as a caption? Photoshop lets you vary the color, the size, and the opacity of added text.
So I can tell you now, it's unlikely that that is a feature that would be integrated into the application because it's really designed for photo developing. One of the objectives was where Photoshop is amazing at doing everything, it can also be very confusing because it's used by not only photographers, but by graphic artists, graphic designers, CAD designers, web designers. So it does a lot. And it's also can be frustrating for a photographer who just wants to use the photography side. So we've really focused exclusively on the photo developing. Because I can send it to Photoshop, I can very easily leverage the text tools inside Photoshop, which is what I would do. You can, if you want for a watermark, I could take an image, and let me just grab something here. Too many images to choose from, but let me go to something I've already edited. So the great thing is I'll just go to edited, and we'll pick an image that I worked on. Here we go. And if I want to add, say, my watermark or my signature, I can go up here in the edit mode, and instead of adding a layer as an adjustment layer, I can add a image layer. And here I have PNG files. It also will work with a TIFF file of my signature. This is what it is. It's simply white on black. I open that up. It will bring that in as a second layer. I can then choose how it's interpreted. Right now, it's trying to fill the space, but I can go to image mapping and just say, make it fit. So now there we lose the distortion. I can go into the transform option, which is Command T. And once I'm in the transform option, I can easily take that down, position it where I want. I'm going to hit done. So now I've brought in my image and it's white on black, and I need to now create that sense of transparency. So what I'm going to do is we have blending modes available for every layer as well as for every filter. So I can go right to the blending mode, and the screen mode removes all black from my image. And right there, I was very easily able to add my watermark to this image. And I can actually even copy and paste that to different images in my library if I wanted to. So I could go ahead and sync this to, say, another image. Well, let's pick this one right here. And I'm going to go sync. Might need to position it a little bit, but we go sync adjustments. And there, if I open this up now in the edit mode, gives it a second to work with this. Much smaller resolution, shot this years ago. No, there's my signature right in the corner. And I can reposition that. I could throw in a little bit of a deeper vignette across the bottom for that to pop out a little bit more. As a matter of fact, one of my favorite filters is the vignette for this, but an adjustable gradient. And I'll go here and just bring that adjustable gradient right down to the bottom. Make it a little bit smaller. And all I'm going to do here is on the bottom, just bring down the exposure here. Okay. And now it's nice and subtle, but my name's going to pop up a little bit more, and I can go play with that. So there's a lot of great little features. And I myself, who've been using this, intimately on a daily basis, keep discovering new ways to mix and match things to create really unique images and to really save time when I'm processing my images.
Very good. All right, Wally, thanks for that. Here's another good question. There's lots of good questions in here. Harold wants to know, where is the list of keyboard shortcuts, and can you add or edit to them? And Lori responded, yes, you can find them at the end of the user guide for both Mac and Windows at skylum.com/luminar/user-guides. So just go to that URL. And then Harold responded, can you edit or add? Can you, and so that's the big question. Can you edit or add keyboard shortcuts to
At this
Luminar?
point in time within the application, you cannot edit the keyboard shortcuts. So we've kind of gone with the industry standards for the one that we can implement. There is a couple of differences between the Mac and PC, which is why it's good to check the user manual. And that's constantly being updated as we update the application. And that is some the operating systems, they take precedent on a keyboard shortcut, so we can't use what we would think would be appropriate. And that has been some of the challenges, but you can't modify them within the application. I know there are third-party applications where you can map a different keyboard shortcut to an existing keyboard shortcut for those who want to do that, as well as even using some hardware devices. I know that Frederick turned me on to this thing called Stream Deck, and I can program each of the buttons to do something differently. And in that way, I can apply the keyboard shortcut with the press of a button that's in front of me. But within the application at this point, you cannot modify the existing keyboard shortcuts.
All right, thank you for that. All right, Greg has a question. He says, what's the best way to denoise the sky after making a picture more vibrant?
So my knee-jerk reaction is actually to use the denoise filter and a mask. So I would go to add filter, and let's say this is more vibrant. It does pick up some of the noise. And so here, if I click on denoise, it will take me right to the issue fixer, and I can apply that. And here I can work with the noise in both the luminance and the color. Now, when I work with anything such as denoising or adding detail, I like to go from the fit to window view to an 100% view. You can easily do that with this drop down up here from fit to screen to 100%. Lets you see the detail as it really is in the final image. If you do come from the Adobe suite, it's the same keyboard shortcuts, which is Control-0 to fit to screen and Control-1 to do a one-to-one pixel, and Command-1 on a Mac and Command-0. So here I'm at 100%, and that way I can see as I start bringing down, whether there's noise in the clouds, I can bring that down till I see the way it works. If I need to goose it up a little bit, if I had to shoot at a very high ISO or in a very dark area. And if I don't want that denoise to affect other parts of my image, as a matter of fact, I will often do this and then go in and say, well, I had noise maybe in the blacks because I brought out the shadows. I then switch over to my masking tools. And depending on my mood, I sometimes will use the paintbrush, and other times I will use the gradient mask to start with. So for a sky, I might use the gradient mask. The Rubylith, switch over from the gradient to the brush. And here I can be a little more specific. I can go ahead and erase it from the building if I want to leave this on, or else I could paint and just see what I'm doing. But this way, when I start playing with denoise, it's only going to affect the sky. And what's great about the way the filters work is I could do that to the sky, but if I find that I have a lot of luminance noise in this ship, I can just add another denoise filter, go ahead and fix the noise in the luminance, again, grab that brush, and now I'm just going to paint in right here to fix the noise on just the ship. And I can go ahead and add multiple instances of the same filter to actually control the nuance of how I'm denoising different parts of my image. I could also change the opacity of my brush if I really want it to be 100% here and 50% there, and vice versa.
There you go. You get as intricate as you want with these.
Yeah, and I do like that, because there's sometimes that I love spending hours on an image that I'm passionate about, and I just want to fix every little pixel. And there's other times where I just want to make it look pretty because I'm excited about it and be able to post it to Instagram so other people can see it. So it gives me that flexibility to go into the really the detailed layering blending mode world, or create just quick and awesome, develop my image and say, wow, I want to show everybody, you know, where I was or what I did.
Yeah. Yep. Charlotte has another question. She says, can the import ingest of image thumbnails be stored in a custom destination?
So all of those are stored in your library catalog, and you can, when you create the catalog, you can store it in any location you want. By default, it will go into your pictures folder. But if I said I wanted to create a new catalog, and it's going to tell me I need to close the old one when I do that, I can save this. I'm going to just save it right to my desktop, and I'll call it TWiP test. I hit save. And so now what it's doing, it's creating a brand new catalog. The other catalog has been safely put away. I can go ahead, add some images, go back to that folder. I'm going to go ahead and maybe choose some, I don't know, we'll go miscellaneous images. There we go. Add folder, brings them all in. And if I go ahead and switch over to my desktop, there is a folder called TWiP test, and that TWiP test, and that's where the catalog is. And that's where the database is of all the cache files. There it is. Those are your thumbnails. And I haven't done any processing, so there's no state files yet. So you can control where this is and where your catalogs are. So if you want, you can keep everything on an external drive, on an internal drive. And that's one of the other nice features. If I had this on an external drive and it's not plugged in, I would still see the thumbnails. I wouldn't be able to edit the images because they're not there. And this would be grayed out. As soon as I plug that drive in, it would populate and I could start working with it. So that's the nice thing, is that I actually have some clients I work with where we share a folder of images that are updated on our Dropbox account. So they're both local to both groups. But if my Dropbox is offline, I can still do things and I can make changes. They can throw in more images and I can work with those. So it updates really, really nicely. And we go into much more detail on that in some of the other overview videos that we have on the website about the nuances of how the folder structure works. We only really touch the very tip of the iceberg when it comes to bringing in folders. You can also organize things into albums, which is like playlists on your music. And there are further ways that you can refine your organization of photos. And while you ask the next question, I'm going to open up the old catalog.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, look at that.
Yeah. Go ahead. Let's get the other.
I beat you. That's how fast it is. Yeah.
Yeah, you did. Yeah. So Daniel says, in the library, how can I tell file type, JPEG, RAW, etc., when shooting RAW plus JPEG?
So at this point, if you bring in a folder are both your RAW and your JPEG images, it will bring in both of those. It doesn't automatically stack them. It is on our roadmap to do that. So what I tend to do is I've already separated my JPEGs and my RAWs into separate folders when I've organized them on my desktop. But if you do want to see the type of image you're working on, you can select it. And to the right of the library and edit panels is a button for the info panel. And that allows you to see information about this. So this stuff was shot 10 years ago, 12 years ago, as a matter of fact, on an old XTI. But I can see all the EXIF data, as well as that it is a JPEG. And if I go down to, say, one of my other images here, this is probably not this was shot with a Canon, and this is a RAW image. I can, if I've brought in a whole bunch of images and I want to find just my RAW ones, what I'll do is I'll actually sort them by file type. So now I'm grouped by all my file types. If I'm going to scroll up, so this is all of my Sony stuff. And what I would do here is I would actually go down and see where it changes. And, you know, let's say that is the end of all my RAW. So what I'm going to do, I'll make this into a small view so we can see more images. Come on, small. Much better with a camera than I am with a mouse. Hold down my Shift key. Now I've selected all of these. And what I can do in my library is I can create an album. Doesn't move any of my images. It's like a playlist where you can have the same song, different playlists, but I can create an album and I could say, this is just all my RAW images, okay? So now by sorting them and then selecting them, I've been able to organize and just, if I wanted to work with the RAW images, I should be able to deselect there. And these are all my RAW images. And now I can resort these by, say, capture time. I have them by event. So there's a couple of steps, but I can tell you that we do have our long-term plan for the application, our roadmap for the application listed on our website. If you go to skylum.com, and you can find the roadmap. As a matter of fact, if I can switch to this quickly, window, here's my education, should be under here. There we go. There's the roadmap for Luminar, and you can see what we're looking to do in the next update, what we're working on. There's an example of RAW and JPEG in the same image in a more convenient way. So as you can see, they are aware of that. They're working on that. and then even some of our long-term objectives to really bring this into being the application that we are passionate about. And by the way, the roadmap here, you can see Mac, there's Windows, and so I know there was definitely some window questions about things they wanted to add. So you can see, you know, what we're working on and what we're proposing on doing. And then there's a little bit that maybe some cloud services coming down in the future. So there's a lot of little secrets. If you go to the Skylum website and dig around, you'll find out a little bit about what we are planning on doing with the application.
Love it. Cool. All right, we're gonna answer a couple of more. I don't think we're gonna get through all these questions, but we'll be here till about 1:30, which is another hour from now. It's about 12:27 now. So let's take 2 or 3 more questions, and then we'll wrap it up. And again, I encourage folks to head over to or email Skylum support at skylum.com to get your questions answered, or just dive into the mountain of educational resources that Skylum has available that Abba showed before. So let's continue. Let's take a couple more questions, Abba. Then I'll let you get on with your day. How's that? Okay. All right. The next one's from Wally. Wally says, I have Luminar 2018, but I don't see the library icon on top like Abba showed. Where do I get the library?
So in response
feature?
to that, it's actually a separate application that if you owned Luminar 18 prior to the release of libraries, was last October or December. I believe it was December. We have Aurora was released in October, but in December it was released, and you should have gotten an email which would have given you where you can download the Luminar with libraries or Luminar 3 application. And if you can't find that email, if you go to the Skylum website and you log in to your account, which you created when you probably first installed Luminar 2018, it will give you a link to where you can download Luminar 3, as well as the serial number that you would have been assigned for that. So it was a free automatic upgrade for everybody who had 2018. And as a matter of fact, we didn't sell 2018 once we released Luminar 3. It's likely that it's just something that you might have missed the email on. But if you do that, you should be able to find it. If you can't find it, go ahead and shoot an email to the folks that support, again, support at skylum.com. And they'll ask you your email and whatnot and look up the information, and we'll take care of you. So it is a separate download. They actually can both live on the same machine. You can have both Luminar 2018 and Luminar 3. So you can go back and forth if you prefer between the 2 applications. And that should hopefully resolve his issue.
Very good. All right, a couple more. This doesn't count because this is a feature request from Charlotte. She says, could we have, or do we already have, a reflection filter?
So I'm guessing is it a reflection removal, or it could be a reflection addition. We don't have anything specifically in either of those cases. I know that often the polarizer filter is used when dealing with some reflection. To create a reflection, you can, if you needed to, grab an image and flip part of it as a second layer. One of the things you can do when you're in the cropping mode is I could take this layer if I wanted to, and actually I've never gone down this path. I've actually done let's say a duplicate of this, and then if I go here to the cropping tool, when you're inside of this cropping tool, you can flip it left and right, and you can flip it top and bottom. So I could flip it top and bottom, possibly, and then see if I can go ahead and then switch from crop to free transform, move it down a little bit. I think I just did my reflection wrong here, but there's probably a way that you can do it backdoor-wise. I would recommend, that's a perfect opportunity, that if you have something like Photoshop where you can do that, I would probably do that there. Now, I do want to point out, since I totally messed this up, and I'm glad I did, one of the things that I didn't show is that you have unlimited undos and you have an unlimited history. So when I come back to an image, so I messed this up, I'm going to go back here to where the original was, and everything will be fine. But let's take a look in my library at something that I've already recently edited. And if I go back to something I've recently edited, and we can go back here, say to this image right here that I played with. So if I open this up, even though I worked on this earlier today, as a matter of fact, if you recall, I closed this catalog, created a new one, and then went back to it. If I select this picture and go to edit, I can, with this drop down right over here of history, this is everything I did to this image from the moment I opened it. And I can step back to any point in time and see where the image was then and continue on at this point, changing it into a new direction. Or if I wanted to find out maybe how I did something or what my settings were, I could easily just look back and say, oh yeah, I played with the structure and I ultimately liked it at around 32. And then I'm going to go ahead. Oh, I see I changed to 71. So I can jump back forward. So that ability to look at your history as well as to go back, Control Z, Control Z, and Command Z for depending on your operating system, very easy for you to undo mistakes, which I make many of.
All right, cool. All right, let's just take one or two more. Andy says, how do you show only raw files?
At this point, there's not just a filter in the library to do the raw files. The way that I do it, and again, you saw it is in our roadmap to actually, that's what we're currently working on, is to be able to delineate a little more specifically. So the way that I do it now is to just sort by file type. And then I find out the grouping. It's going to keep all my raw files together by actual camera manufacturer. It will then keep all of my together, all of my JPEGs together, and all of my, say, my Photoshop documents. And once I've done that, then I create albums of just those types of files. But there's no, at this point, the ability to say, just show me a specific of raw or just raw, though they are aware of that and it's on the roadmap.
Yeah. Which makes it a very good question. Thank you, Andy. All right. The last two questions. Charlotte has a feature request. Can we have an AI filter that scans the image folder and finds great images? Are we going to have artificial intelligence that tells you if you're a good photographer or not?
I think that'd be a judgment call on whether an image is great or not. And sometimes you can determine if I have had images that I thought were less than stellar, and I have been really impressed with a few tweaks what I've been able to do with them. As a matter of fact, I was about to open one that I thought had potential but wasn't necessarily great. That was down here, and I just thought it was a little bit flat, and I could do something with it. And it was one of these boat shots. And I just, because I think that's a great question. It's like, well, what if you take something that's kind of mediocre? I think it's this series here. I just shot a bunch of bracketed images, and I'm going to go ahead and just edit one of those. And as you can see, this is pretty dark and muddy, but hopefully the first thing I would do is I would go ahead and throw on my Accent AI and my sky enhancer. It still's a little bit dark. I can see that in my histogram. So I go to exposure and open that up a little bit. Bring back some of the blue. I want to recover my highlights so I don't lose a lot of the detail in the water. It's a little crooked, so I can go to my tools and go to the crop. And here I want to not only adjust the angle to make, because I can't hold the camera straight. So let's go here and kind of make that a little bit even. As I said, my mouse skills, I have a new mouse, and it's very sensitive. And maybe I want to change the aspect ratio to something I want to put on Facebook. There we go. Here's my Facebook cover. Make it nice and wide. Use as much of the image as possible. Come on, you can grab this, Abba. There we go. And we'll center that there. So what was kind of not a great image, and actually I'll probably change the framing on this. Just go ahead. Let's bring up some smart tone. I'm going to add two more things to this, and we're going to take what relatively a mediocre image. There's a really cool little filter I like called split color warmth. And I can warm up my warms, which should be the rocks, without affecting the cooler areas. This, again, uses image-aware technology. Okay, so I can bring that, add a little bit of detail.
Nice.
So the detailer is underneath here, under Detail Enhancer. Bring some detail into those rocks. Okay, that's really starting to pop the rocks in the water. And then if I wanted to, I could even grab my adjustable gradient and throw that on. Set orientation, just bring it into the sky. At that point, go with the top. I can warm or cool off the sky as I want. Maybe add a little bit of vibrance to it, makes that a little bit too blue, but I'm going to play with this until I get something I like. I could open up the sky a little bit. There we go. I like a brighter, that's a nice brighter sky. Do I want a cooler or warmer? That's about good. Let's take a look at what the original image looked like. This was just, what, less than 5 minutes? So that AI might not say is a good image. That is something that I wouldn't mind putting on my Facebook feed. Maybe straighten it out just a little bit more. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
so
I
it's
think
subjective, right? Yeah. So it's hard to
what I
teach
have
an AI
discovered is
to
I've gone
be
back to some old
subjective.
images that I kind of gave up on. And I was very grateful, and it was really easy to take some of those and turn them into what I had envisioned when I snapped the shutter without a lot of work. And that's where I think the AI really comes nicely into play, in that I've been able to determine if I can save an image very quickly, and often just using the AI features, and we've seen several of them, to bring out the best in an image.
Very good. All right, last question. Sorry for that we didn't get to all the questions, but there's a ton more. Again, if you have questions that we didn't answer, just shoot an email over to support@skylum.com or dive into the resources over on the website, and I'm sure the questions will be answered there. The last question for this webinar is from Troy. I wonder if that's Troy Miller. He wants to know, how does Luminar round trip to Photoshop?
Not a challenging one, but actually one that's really useful. And I love just switching between all these images, because then I can remember which ones I've worked on, which one I haven't. All of these have been shot over time. Let me grab something that maybe one of the Shanghai ones. I think we did work with one of these. We brought out, I don't know which one of these I think we did some work on. So let's say I have this image, I've worked on this image, and I want to take advantage of something in Photoshop to fix this up or change this. As a matter of fact, I do want to point out that we do have within the application the ability to do cloning and stamping as well as erasing. But maybe there's another filter in Photoshop I want to use, or I like their adjustment layers. All I have to do is go up here to my share menu, one of several ways that I can get into Photoshop, and I say open in Photoshop. Now, before I do that, I want to point out that when you install Luminar 3, it will automatically ask you if you want to install it as a plugin to any of the host applications that are on your computer, such as Adobe Lightroom and Adobe Photoshop. If you said no, you can at any point go under the main menu. It's under Luminar on a Mac and under File on a PC, and you can say Install Plugins. And in this case, I don't have it installed on Photoshop. I actually intentionally uninstalling things so I could show you this. But I click Install. You're going to have to, of course, have some administrative privileges to go in. And so I say Done. And now when I go over to Photoshop, if I launched it, the plugin would work. But I'm also going to just send this to Photoshop, open in Photoshop. I think I probably have 3 iterations of Photoshop on my computer and external drive, so we'll see if it pops up the right version. And so what it's doing now is it's taking the image, it's flattening it, it's applying all of the filters and creating a 16-bit TIFF image that it will send over to Photoshop. It will launch Photoshop, there we go. And from within inside Photoshop, you'll now see this as a layer. I can go ahead and do whatever I want to this. So for instance, I can say, I like it, but maybe I want to throw on one of our adjustment layers. Maybe I can modify that, bring up this contrast a little bit. And at this point, I could stay inside of Photoshop, or I could send it back to Luminar. And so I could go under Filter, and I guess I would have to actually make sure I went to send something that I like. So let's go ahead and flatten this. And now I can go up under Filter, Skylum, and put that into Luminar 3. And now it starts it as a plugin, and I'm back in Luminar to work with this. And this is one of the nice things. If I came from Photoshop, so as you see, if I started in Photoshop and if I applied it as a plugin, I could go ahead and do work in this image. Okay, let's work with the highlights. I mean, I've already worked this, but let's, click on the accent AI. This is great, a little more sky filter. So now we've processed the image. Because I sent this in from as a plugin or as a filter from within Photoshop, here I have the option to apply it. And when I hit apply, it will now round trip this image that I've modified with Luminar and send it back to Photoshop. And one of the things that I think is really cool, I know there's a lot of folks out there who don't subscribe to the Creative Cloud, and they have legacy versions of both Photoshop and Lightroom that are missing some of the features that Adobe has added over time. And by adding Luminar as a plugin to their workflow, they can get more features. And I do want to point out that Luminar is a product that you buy. It's not a subscription product. So you buy it, you own it, it doesn't expire. And that way you can add more features and functionality to your existing software without having to necessarily upgrade to a subscription version. And, those of us that do subscribe, I do subscribe, but there's some people that they prefer to own their software. So they're staying with Lightroom 6, I believe it is, CS6. So as you can see, I've applied those filters and I've already enhanced this image. It applied it right here, and I can continue to work in Photoshop. And if I step back just, before I added the filter, you can see very quickly what I was able to achieve by just sending an image that was pretty good into Luminar and doing a couple of quick slider fixes. And now I'm back into Photoshop, where, going back to an earlier question, I could very easily now do all that work with text, with the text tool here, by adding a text layer. So let's see if I can spell. Look at that. If you look really closely, I have the world's smallest piece of text here. And let's see if I can make that a little bit bigger. I actually should need to enter it a decent size number, 300. Pretty high resolution. So that's how you spell Luminar when you can't see it. And we'll go Luminar 3. There we go. And I can take advantage of all the great features within Adobe Photoshop now to create a title that I like, and then just save it directly out of Photoshop. So there we go. Any other questions? Yeah, I appreciate everybody asking these questions. It's exciting for me because, as you can see, I'm pretty passionate about the application, and I live in this app, and I've been using Photoshop for 25 years.
You live in this app, Abba. Yeah.
A great app, and Lightroom's a great app, but this really has allowed me to do some things very quickly that I couldn't otherwise do. And the fact that I can use both, share this inside of other applications, it really has made my, editing almost limitless. So it's making a crappy photographer look way better. That's my secret. That's the secret. I'm gonna say that you're being modest. You're an excellent photographer. Yeah. But once again, I want to remind folks, we're gonna end this webinar. But remember, if you go to TWiP.pro/Luminar, or just go over to the Luminar website and use the code TWiP, it'll knock $10 off of the price of Luminar. So make sure you do that. We did our Q&A. Also, support@skylum.com. If you have questions and answers, or questions, don't give them answers, just give them questions over there. That's support@skylum.com, or just dig through their mountain of educational resources. And with that, we're at the end of our webinar. Abba, you did a fantastic job, man. Congratulations. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for having me. It's always fun talking with you, Frederick. We're of like minds.
Yes. Yeah. And just a little inside baseball, folks. I've been spending Abba's money lately, and convinced him to buy a lot of the gear that I have here. So he's got a studio that's very similar to mine now.
It's like a little kid. He shows me something, and I go, "That's cool," and then I said, "Oh, I can get that overnighted." So
yes,
we're both gadget junkies, and so that always enhances our engagement. So that's great.
Yeah, Troy's in the chat saying you're not alone, Abba. See, it's a combination. It's the 1-2 punch of me demonstrating how I'm doing stuff and things being so easy to get on Amazon Prime, right? Because then you just click and you got it, right? So, all right, guys. Well, thank you everyone for attending. We had like I said, I just started this webinar series a couple of weeks ago, and I've been blown away at the response of it. And then thank you folks for being flexible with us and accommodating at the beginning as we had a little hiccup getting started, but we got it going. And as we do more of these webinars, they'll be smoother and smoother, hopefully. And I think that's the end. That's the end of this webinar. I'll let you all get on with your day. You'll be getting a replay link in your email probably later today that will, bring you back here if you want to rewatch it again. The cool thing about the replay of this webinar, and one of the reasons why I chose this platform for the TWiP webinars, is the Q&A. And you can see we went for about 40 minutes with our Q&A segment, which seems to be, pretty much one of the most popular parts of these webinars. But this platform allows me to timestamp the questions. So as you scroll through the questions on the replay and click on one, it will pop the video to the part where Abba is answering that question. So it becomes much more valuable rather than you having to scrub through and find answers. You can just look through the questions and click on one. It'll take you to that spot in the video. So that's it. Abba, on with your day. And folks, you know what I always say on the podcast, if you watch This Week in Photo, it's time to take that lens cap off.